did say 100 and somebody today. So you've been up here a long time. It's been here, and it's a blessing to be Brother Vallier from Bible Baptist, Riverview Baptist down in Pasco before we came up here, and could have made $1 jillion having his own practice, doing his own thing. Gave himself the Lord early, and goes and helps churches with their books, and helps pastors, and helps all kinds of missionaries, all kinds of people. And it's not easy, and I can't imagine that it's fun. And so he is cut out of a different cloth to want to do those things. But I enjoy just hearing from him because he's in the thick of that mess all the time. And that's kind of real street where stuff hits you when you hear, Mr. McCarthy. I don't like any of our California politicians, no matter what's before or after their names. But 87,000 of anything of that stripe can't be great. But anyways, we get to hear from Brother Vallier things about those things at times, and it's a blessing. And so we're thankful for you, brother, and we pray for you in your travels. And come preach to us tonight.
Undergraduate, Bob Jones Accounting, and then went on to grad school, and I studied law and worked for a law firm for a while. And I realized as I was trying to help my own church, my pastor didn't know anything about church finances. Well, I just found out not only my pastor didn't know, but a whole lot of others didn't know. In fact, when you went to Bible college, you might got 1 or 2 hours with that, where some guest speaker came in and told you. And now we got pastors around the country. Back then in the 80s, it was bonds, busing, building, boring, and bankruptcies. Am I saying the same thing, right? You agree with me? That was what was going on because everybody wanted to start a Christian school. We're not going to send our kids to that blankety old school over here, and we're getting our kids out, so we're going to start Christian schools. And those Christian schools, they have people who are untrained with all the finances. The big money is going through Christian schools. And then we built buildings and built more buildings. And now what do you got? We got the aging population all across America. I'm glad to see some of the young people. But you and I know this, right? We know this. There's an aging population in our church in the next 10 years. Let's say it, 1/3 of us, or maybe half of us, will be gone. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'm just stating the facts. If you feel guilty, I can, if the shoe fits, wear it. I'm that age, I say, but I'm not going to I said, yeah. You can grow old gracefully, but you can do some things to keep you from growing old. And I say keep you from growing. You're going to get older one way or another. But health care begins with self-care, not with the government. And now we want the government to give us everything. I don't know how many here tonight know how close this government going almost closed by this week. We would have people running on the banks all weekend. It came that close with just a few votes. Next time, God's going to get America's attention. And when I think of that, how did this government get there? I think we got a nation full of people who got this. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Yeah, and it started way back when, but the real crux was when everybody, including Christians, said, where's my stimulus check? The government doesn't owe you anything. And then everyone was told the whole nation's going to collapse because of COVID. That was the chemical warfare that we started ourselves. Yeah, believe me. And so whatever the government gave everybody money, now this inflation created now a hopeless situation unless somebody does something right. We were down at Pasco and with Chuck Hardy, very well. Chuck's a good friend of mine. We were on the radio all week that week. We found out who's going to get elected. Who's going to get elected in the next election? This is not in the notes, though. But who's going to get in the next election is the one who has the least amount of character assassinations. Because you can't get elected on your honesty and integrity. So you might be able to, if God puts you there. But what we're seeing is when Chuck Garden says, if anyone runs, they're going to tear that man down viciously. And they got psychologists, they got people out there, and I call some of these, let me just say nicely, There's some num-nums out there who believe anything the newspaper said or the TV said. I saw it on TV. Well, I saw it on the Communist News Network too, but I didn't believe a word they said. All right, now we can get into the Word of God. All right, now you got the idea where I'm coming from. As I studied economics, did my doctorate in economics, and I see this thing and I thought, whoa, this is so far from Eric von Mises and Henry Hazlitt, who wrote the book One Easy Lesson, Economics and One Easy Lesson, common sense stuff. But now we don't have that, you know. And I always say, when good sense makes common sense, don't make any other sense unless you have nonsense, and we got nonsense. I'm going to look in my Bible today, and I'm going to turn over. Let's go to Genesis, right in the beginning. And Genesis chapter 13. Ooh, how's Brother Paisley doing? All right. What's he, 88? No, I know he's up in his high 80s, yeah. And this guy has no running, no slowing down. Yeah, 83, and he's on the treadmill every day. Hey, we don't need the government to give us all this health care. We just need some people who are willing to get on the treadmill sometimes. Genesis chapter 13, 8 through 12. Let's look over there. Genesis 13. Let's 12. Let's get right over here. In Genesis 13, let's go down to Genesis 13, and let's start with verse number 8. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between thy herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we be brethren. I like them southern people. We be brethren. And is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. And if thou wilt take to the left hand, then I'll go to the right. If thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan. Now, this wasn't a desert. This is where the crops grow and everything is going to be really nice. And here's what it says here. That is that all the plain of Jordan, that was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord. Hey, this was like the Garden of Eden. I mean, anything can grow out there, and cattle and herds and all that. And so here it says, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him the plain of Jordan. And Lot journeyed east and separated themselves one from the other. And Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent towards Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners, and before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lot lifted up his eyes and looked from the place where thou art, northward and southward, eastward and westward. And for all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it thee, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then thy seed be numbered. And arise and walk through the land of the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for it I will give it thee unto thee. And Abraham removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the land, dwelt in the plain of Merilah, which is Hebrew, and built there an altar unto the Lord. You got the picture here, the story here. Here they're having fights with each other. Things are not doing too good. And so, Abraham trying to be the nice guy in this thing. And you already know Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom. Okay, so you know what he was looking at down there, a wicked place. But it was well watered. I mean, you're going to have lots of money. Your crops are going to grow, and cattle, and you never worry about another hungry day. You're going to have all this wealth. And Abraham, he could have had it too. But what did Abraham do? He said what? We be what? Brethren. Brothers and sisters shouldn't fight with each other. Now, let's face it, some of us fundamentalists, we fight with each other to stay in shape. I mean, isn't it true? Yeah. I mean, I used to read some of those newspapers. I gave up listening to some of those there because there's so-and-so fighting so-and-so, and who's criticizing this one and that, And look, I don't want to get in that fight. They're going to fight and call you names next. You know, it's like the election. It's who's going to get elected, the one they can assassinate the character most. So Abraham's over there saying, you can choose this, you can take that. Which one do you want? Because we're brethren. We're not going to fight. And when he lifted up, he saw that strife, and so Lot lifted up his eyes and he looked out there and looked at the circumstances, and he saw all that well-watered plain. And then Abram says, hey, if thou will take the left hand, I will go to the right. Lot only had to lift his eyes up before Lot became a taker. He said, I'm going to take what I want. But there's a whole lot of people in America who are grabbing, gimme, 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 and they're taking it, and they're not giving back to it. And now what do we got? We got a country that's going debt. They can't even pay the interest on the national debt. Banks could have closed easily by this week. We could have been running on the streets trying to get, it could have happened. I mean, it's not like real far-fetched, long way and 10 years down the road. It could have happened last week. And like Abram, a giver is the type of person who's more likely to give in than just have a fight. I like being around people who are givers. I can always spot a taker. You know, you can spot a taker. They always want to fix the blame rather than fix the problem. And you watch in some marriages. Adam said it. It's the woman thou hast given me. He fixed the blame. You know what? You knew who the taker was. Yeah. And always, whenever you have a giver and a taker together, you can spot the taker, because the taker is going to be the one who wants to fix the blame. They want what's best for them, not really what's best for the other. And so a giver usually gives out and is more likely to give in. You know, some people, you give them a reason to get in a fight, and they'll get in a fight in a few minutes. Well, so-and-so said this, and they want to start a fight. Or worse, it's even worse when it happens within our own family, our own church family. Yeah, you know, some churches, you know, some guy said to me, let's make like the church is split. You know, why we're fighting with each other. It shouldn't be that way. This is my family here. I mean, I get along with my church friends more than some of my own family. I mean, they're unsaved. I try to win them to the Lord and so on, but doesn't that, hey, we're in a different category because we want to be out there being missionaries. And by the way, my wife is overseas. If you're wondering where she's at, she's with the grandkids. When my kids are missionaries in Malta, and grandbaby number 7, my wife is an ER nurse, so she wants to go over there, and my daughter wants her to help deliver this baby. Okay, so great. Now I'm living it up over here, sure. Eating cornflakes for lunch. I've been to Walmart 15 times. I got that $1, that $6 sub. I'm doing okay. I'm not doing too bad. You know, a giver gives out and is more likely to give in. But a taker, they're not going to give in. They're going to take what's best for them, and that's this whole political realm. They're takers. There's a whole lot of takers, and there's takers in our churches. They come to church, and they're the first one to criticize a preacher, but they're going to be the last one to put some money in the offering plate. They're going to be the last one that says, hey, preacher, can you use me? I like when someone comes up to me and says, preacher, is there anywhere you can use me in your ministry? That's a giver. You know, with some people, when it comes to getting into the ministry, is that how much they're going to get paid? Look, 0. You know, God says, for having food and shelter, therewith be content. Yeah. So God promised me a meal on a day and every day, and God's going to give me shelter, and I ain't worried about that, and God's taking care of the rest. But some people they're takers, and they won't serve God because it's not going to pay enough. It's not enough of future for it. Young people, don't look at the paycheck. You got eternal rewards in heaven. You talk about riches. I got streets of gold up there and a mansion. A giver is more concerned. I say a giver is concerned is always, what can I do to help others? That's a giver. Gimme, gimme, gimme is a favorite saying of takers. Give it to me. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Givers are always busy. You know, as much as busy as a giver is, a giver always finds time for someone else. Yeah, you ever seen like they're always busy at the church, and they say, well, Brother Vallier, your car's not running too good. Can I take care of it? And let me, yeah, I love that. I love this. Be a sneaky giver. You ever done that? Any of that sneaky giving? Boy, that's a whole lot of fun. Send a gift card to someone who's having a hard time. And don't just put a $10 gift card for Chick-fil-A. I mean, put a good sized gift card in there. Yeah, I like to do that kind of sneaky giving. Someone says to me, Brother, let me borrow your keys. I said, oh, you can move my car. Yeah, I got to move the car. Oh, I'm not paying attention. I go out that night, get out in the parking lot, and my car's back right almost where it was. I know it's moved. I turned it on, and guess what? I got a full tank of gas in there. What happened? Sneaky giver came in there. Yeah. How many have ever had this? You've gone to a restaurant, and then you went to pay the bill, and the waitress said, your bill is paid for. I mean, there was 3 or 4 of us in this place called the Olive Garden. I don't know if you have them up here. Oh, yeah, that's good food there. Yeah, so we went in there, about 4 of us went in there, and I know we didn't just give us the bowl of soup. Yeah, no cornflakes, right? Yeah, we got the meal. And when we got through eating that meal, I mean, I know it was well over $100 for 4 people. And we tried to pay it, and the waitress said, somebody else paid your bill today. Hey, I like to be around givers like that. I like being part of that sneaky giving because I get a bigger blessing. And I'd rather be the sneaky giver than the person that consumed the meal because I get a bigger blessing out of it. A taker always looks for the path of least resistance. A taker's life is self-centered and is marked by constant conflict. You want to see a marriage that's got conflict? I can guarantee this is going to happen. I hope none of them in this auditorium. But you look at a couple that were pure and moral before they got married. You got 2 takers, and they're going to have 2 takers after they're married. And those marriages don't always last very long, except when the Lord gets in there and drastically changes their whole life. Young people, you watch out. Watch out. You think you can get away with all this stuff. You'll be sure your sin will find you out. And that's what it was. The divorce rate now is higher than ever before in America. More than 50% of the families are broken up, and kids are growing up without a mom and dad. Why? Because we got 2 takers who are bombarded with the immorality from the television sets. I thank God for what DeSantis did to Disney World. Yeah. Amen, brother. Yeah, we ain't funding them one bit anymore. We don't. They need us, but we don't need them. Thank God for that. In marriages, takers will eventually take away the very relationship that keeps them alive. They often end up lonely people. The divorce rate's real high when there's 2 takers together. It's never wise. It's never wise for 2 takers to marry. Yeah. It's quiet now. Yeah. Why? It's never wise for 2 takers to marry. Why? Because they're never going to be satisfied. There's always going to be someone else that's got a little more money and maybe, a little more sense and, treat you a little bit nicer and did some nice things at where you work at. And, you spent 8 hours your day or sometimes 80 hours a week with someone who's not even your husband or your wife. And all you see is, hey, they're getting paid. They better be nice. But you go home and then you find out that the clothes hadn't been washed. The dog is messed on the sidewalk in the garage, and you stepped in it when you get out of your car. I mean, all this stuff. And then you want to blame someone else. Can I say it again? Quit trying to fix the blame and fix the problem. I've heard couples, men say, well, she's not meeting my needs anymore, or he doesn't love me anymore. You know what? Take a look inside at your own heart. It's not that he doesn't love me. You don't love her unconditionally. You're starting to become a taker. Yeah, take a look at yourself. Takers destroy each other, and strong takers destroy others around them as well. Now, I know there's some situations where I work with Doug Carragher with the PTSD, right? And we had a case there that the man, he'd been through it in Afghanistan. I'm sorry. Um, but he said, I've been through it. And he said, his wife said, he comes home from work and he locks himself in the bedroom. He can't face the world. He does his job on a computer all day, comes home, and she said, I didn't even get 10 words out of him. He doesn't talk to the kids anymore. What's happening? He's fearful of people? No. Somewhere something changed that man and turned him into a taker. Something changed that. And it may be something that he's got a secret that no one else knows. My friends, be sure your sin will find you out. It always comes out. You know, and his wife said he hadn't paid his taxes in 7 years. This is how good God is. Good. The rest of the story. So I called the IRS and I said, I'm trying to help someone, ma'am. Can you get me someone that might be able to help this man? And she said, where was he? I said, Kandahar. She said, I was there. And she's the IRS lady. Whew. She said, I'm going to try to help him. She personally tried to bring up 7 years of back taxes. Now, he's still going through some difficulties, but he cleaned up that record. Now, I'm not blaming him for all that. Some things like that, when you see some of your best friends gone, I was uh, I was driving to New Jersey, going to preach in a church. I started in Georgia. There must have been 75 bikers, all in a row, with big black motorcycles, big bikes. They're going to drive all day, and they stopped overnight. And I didn't know where they stopped, but I stopped after I saw where they pulled into a hotel. The next day, I started driving. I got all the way up to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And when did you know? I hear this noise behind me. There's got to be 50 to 75 bikes, and they all had a big American flag hanging behind it. And on the back of it, the last vehicle was a pickup truck with a great big sign. Remember our veterans in Kandahar. Now, some of you young people don't know what that is, but that's where Hillary Clinton said, don't wake me up. I got to sleep. And men got killed that night because she was sleeping. I'm not going to try to get bitter towards her, but I sure appreciate those men who made aware of what was happening. Those are givers. They gave their all out there, and they didn't expect anything in return. And at their own cost, they rode their bikes, their motorbikes, these big Harleys, and some are smaller ones. But they rode, and there must have been 2 miles long, that list. And I picked up the trail end of that. I wasn't in a bike. I said, I can be one of those. I've had a military ministry in Germany, so I got a pretty good idea. I knew some guys who were over there. And I worked with Doug Carriger. And so I said, I'm going to follow them as far as I can. I went all the way to Pennsylvania. They went to New Jersey. All the way from Georgia up to Pennsylvania, across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. You know what? He's got to prove he has a transmission, so. I mean, maybe gas is cheap for him. But we learned something. We learned something there. Hey, people were willing to give their all for us. Jesus Christ gave his all for us. The world needs a world full of givers, not takers. In this whole election coming up, you know, what Chuck Harding said is, I said, it's a character assassination every day. They're trying to take away someone's reputation, destroy someone's character so they won't get elected. That's the whole idea of an election. No, that's not in the book anymore. But, you know, people are gullible enough to believe those lies. Why? Because they want to believe a lie. Yeah, a lot of people, they want to believe a lie. They want some answer, whether it's true or not, they want an answer. We got people out there who are takers, And then, what the famous last word of a taker, what the famous last words of a taker is? I just couldn't take it anymore. And then they justify what they're doing, and what they're doing is taking. When one is a giver and the other taker, one is a taker, the taker will complain that the giver is not giving enough. The giver gives out and he feels drained. And a giver is totally dependent upon God. A taker is dependent upon themselves. John 3:16 is the greatest example of a lifelong giving. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Tonight, you can choose to be a giver or a taker tonight. Your choice is yours. Joseph in prison. What did he say about that? Here they put Joseph, locked him up in prison, and they could have killed him, but they kept him alive. And he was wrongfully accused by Potiphar's wife. Oh yeah, she was a taker, and Joseph was the giver. You can't take away my joy, because the joy comes from God. Your joy comes not from winning the lottery ticket. Your joy comes from giving away that which God has given you to influence someone else's life for Jesus Christ. That's the real joy of giving. The greatest joy is when you get to heaven and someone said, "You witnessed to me, and I got saved, and I'm here for eternity." That's the greatest joy tonight. Abraham gave to Lot, and God gave his son for you and I tonight. We're undeserving sinners, and being a giver is the only reasonable way to live as a Christian. It's the only reasonable way, and we need to get back to saying, I'm going to be a giver, not just a taker. Let's look at your own self tonight. Are you a giver or a taker? I like what Philippians 1:21 says, for me to live is what? Christ. And to what? Die is gain. Did he say for me to live is to win the lottery? No. He wasn't talking about any dollars and cents. He was talking about sacrificing his own life for the cause of someone else. Paul says he couldn't live that self-centered life. Givers care for others. Takers have to be taken care of. They want someone else to fill up the problems. Their focus is on themselves rather than others. They come to church. Many, let's face it, we got takers that come to church. They come to church, and then they're saying God's not doing anything anymore in the church. And we got too many senior citizens. I'm going to go look for another church. What you're saying is, instead of going being a giver, you're going to go out there looking for someone who's going to give you. You're the taker. You know why you're not getting anything out of church? Because you're not giving anything to the church. I mean, I'm talking about money, and I'm talking beyond money. The money is the easy part. It's getting out there and saying, I'm going to be a giver. I'm going to give whatever I have here, Lord. Here's what I have. And Lord, if Pastor, can I wash the windows? Is something needs painting? Can I wash the church bus? Something that needs done. Oh, no, but preacher, I don't think I'm good enough to go out and pass out tracts, though. Oh, why? It's easy to do something you're comfortable with. Get out of your comfort zone tonight and be a giver. Yeah. The giver sings. Why? Why does a giver sing? You ever been around someone like that and he's singing all day long? Oh, how I love Jesus. I mean, I can't whistle. I can't even, my wife said I can't even sing on tune. I said, what's that? I don't know. Honestly, my wife is one of the best pianists. She used to play Lee Robertson's organist. She's very, very good. And I can't even read a note. I don't know. I'd like to harmonize. Hey, if they're singing that way, I'll sing that way. I don't know if it's on key or not, but it sounds good to me. Hey, that's where I like that Bible verse that said joyful noise. That's it. Make a noise. Luke 6:38, it says, give and it shall be given unto you. Hey, you want to find real true riches? It's not in dollars and cents. It's giving yourself away for the cause of Christ. Givers take notes, by the way. And givers care for others. A taker is like a burned out light bulb. I like to sing, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine for Jesus. Yeah. That's not the song of a taker. They're already burned out. They're already upset about something. Did you hear what happened over to that church? Yeah, we're not going to that church anymore. Yeah, and they're the first, takers are the first one to criticize something when something's not going right. A giver says, what can I do to fix the problem? Yeah, and the taker wants to blame someone for the problem. Genesis 3:15 talks about man was thrown out of the garden. He was driven out of the garden because his sin had made him a taker. God made two givers, one for each other, one to live for the other. But that isn't the way many of marriages are made today, especially when you got Adam and Steve in a marriage. You got two takers there, and that ain't a marriage. It's an embarrassment to our nation. Hope you hear that on the radio. It is an embarrassment. Hey, I'm going to tell the truth the way it is. And I recognize, what happens when you get a whole family of these takers like that, it generates another generation like that too. How did we get where we are? It was this gimme, gimme, gimme thing from the 60s and 70s. The immorality that we saw was the takers are on now. Now we got a whole generation that's gone so far that they call evil good and good evil because they're takers. Takers always take away what is best for them. They destroy what is best for them. They destroy others. A giver gives out, and also I notice a giver is the first one that gives in. We be brethren. Lot was a taker, but he needed Abraham to take care of him. Takers will eventually take away the very relationship that made them what they are. They will destroy others, and then they'll blame others for the problem. A giver wants to keep the relationship alive. I told my wife, we may not be a perfect couple. My wife is an ER nurse. You got the picture? You ever see an ER nurse who wasn't in charge? Brother, you went to Tennessee Temple, didn't you? She was the nurse at Tennessee Temple. And the flu went all through that school. Remember that one? Yeah, back there in the early 70s. She said she was told by the medical team that she and the other three nurses had to go into the boys' dorms and give because nobody, they were sick people. You were losing 3 pounds in a couple of days. It was so bad. My wife said I had to go in all them boys' dorms with myself and the other two nurses. However you want, we'll give you a shot. You know where. And I said, what made you want to do that? Because I knew they were sick. Hey, when you're out there and nothing stayed in for 3 days and you were sick as can be, she said, I knew the answer. Yeah. Years later, I saw, and we weren't married then, and years later, I was flying an airplane down in the Amazon. Tom Peace was down there with ABWE, and I meet this nurse out there in the jungle at 2 a.m. in the morning, and someone screaming at the door, and she's in charge. Get the movie camera. What? We're out in the jungle here. You want the movie camera tonight? Some woman's having a baby. What am I getting the movie camera for? And of course, my father-in-law was with me, and he was the surgeon. So the two were out there trying to help this lady deliver a baby, and I was supposed to take the camera and so they could see some light at 2 a.m. in the morning. You know what? I almost became a taker because I had so many chiggers and bugs all around me, I couldn't take it anymore. Hey, oh my, it was awful. You know what? There's a whole lot of missionaries up here in this part of Alaska. I look at down in Selwick. That boy froze to death. And guess who's out there praying day and night for him? And he made sure Brother Compton made sure all people, preachers around the country are praying for that family. You know why he's doing that? Because he cares. And hey, when you know what he knows medically, and his daughter's a MD, and so when you know what he knows, and he says, I'm still going to keep on giving, even if the circumstances where people are dying around you. Keep on giving. And even if they hate you, I'm going to stay here because God put me there. Takers are sometimes depressed to be around, but givers, they always refresh you. They want to keep doing something for them, not for themselves. They want to do something for someone else. They're a blessing to be around. Friends, you cannot outgive God tonight. You cannot outgive God. Luke 6:38 says, given it shall be given to what? Shaken down, pressed together, shall men give in your bosom. Givers tithe even when they don't feel like tithing, or even when they don't seem to have the money to tithe. Well, I'll go find it. I don't have the money for this to send all these kids to camp, but I'm going to go find something where I can get something. I had to go collect pop bottles. How many did that when you were a kid? Pop bottles, 2 cents for the little ones and 5 cents for the big ones. Now they got all tin cans, so I collect tin cans, and they get more money than that for a can. We want to be able to have people that say, if I'm going to send somebody to camp this summer, and if you don't have the money, I'm going to find a way to do it. A lot of people will find an excuse not to do it. That's a taker. A taker will take it even if God doesn't want him to have it. You can be poor and you can still be a giver. And you can be rich and still be a giver. Or you can be rich and become a very strong taker. It's mine, and then no one else is getting it. I worked hard for this. This is my money. Yeah, when you got that attitude, God knows how to take away something that's far more valuable than money. You lose one of your family, or you lose your own health. Honor the Bible tells us, honor thy father and thy mother. Children tonight, young people, honor your parents. I don't always agree with my dad. My dad was a bartender. He owned Al's Bar and Grill. I spent a lot of time in that bar room. Well, off to the side. Never touched it. I hated it so bad. Never did touch it. Well, maybe I tasted it one time. Well, if I did taste it, it was the most sickening stuff I ever tasted. I'd rather drink root beer any day. Yeah. What's that root beer store? They see them all across the country there around the restaurant. A&W. I go there any time. Oh yeah. Or the Smoking Pig down in Valdosta, Georgia. That's the best barbecue any place. Let me get off that one. The Bible tells us in Luke 17 there were 10 lepers. Who said thanks? How many? One. Yeah. Uh, at Thanksgiving time, takers are never grateful, and they're seldom happy. Takers can cook the whole meal and say, look what I sweat and I slaved for this. And what happened? These men went out there and watched the football game and brought his friends over, and they're not even talking to me. But you keep on giving. That he that the contrary part might be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you. It doesn't matter what you give a taker. They're never going to be satisfied. They're never satisfied. They'll always compare themselves with others. Well, so-and-so, they've got this, so I should have it too. Well, that's the problem with our nation. Everyone wants the government to give it, and we're no takers anymore. We're losing those. Matthew 4:19, even Satan was self-motivated. Now, when Satan, they took him up on the pinnacle, and Satan said, all these things will I give unto you, if thou bow down and worship. No. We're not going to bow down to the materialistic God. Because, when you leave this world, you're not taking one thing with you. But you sure leave some blessings behind for a whole lot of people. A giver's perspective is, how can I be a blessing to someone else? That's a giver's perspective of life. Takers have an unbiblical focus of life. Their mind of thinking is that it prevents that. Their mind of thinking prevents them from processing the future perspective of being a giver, even sometimes, because they think that the world should take care of them. Now, you don't say that, and you don't come out with it, but look at what your actions were. I can't see Lot was saying, I'm a taker and I'm proud of it. No, he just said, hey, I got a chance to get myself ahead, and I'm going to take what I can get, even if it wasn't good for him. The favorite last phrase of a taker is gimme, gimme, gimme. Tonight, I wonder, are you a giver or a taker? Are you a cultural Christian or you're a committed Christian? Cultural Christians come to church because it's a nice place to be, nice people. But a committed Christian says, I'm not just going to come, but I'm going to be there when the doors are open, and I'm going to give my not only a tithe and an offering, but they'll give sacrificially. What kind of Christian have we got here tonight? We need a church full of givers again. so that we might see God keep his blessings on this church and the next generation. Let's bow our heads and pray, and thank you, Lord. Our Father, we come and thank you tonight for your rich blessings to us.